You won't believe what I uncovered about my own sister. She faked mental health records just to steal my share of our family's inheritance. When I exposed her lies on TikTok, it wasn't just about money anymore. It became a war for truth and justice that shook everyone who knew us. This isn't just a story about betrayal, it's about how far someone can go to manipulate the people they're supposed to love. I'm Anna, 32, living in a quiet suburb outside Chicago. Growing up, my sister Rachel and I were close, or at least that's what I thought. We shared everything: secrets, dreams, even childhood memories that felt unbreakable. But beneath the surface, there were cracks I ignored, little things that didn't quite add up. Rachel always had a flair for drama, exaggerating stories and playing the victim, but I brushed it off as sibling rivalry or her way of coping with tough times. After our parents passed unexpectedly within months of each other, everything changed. The will was supposed to be split evenly between the two of us. Simple, right? Not when Rachel started throwing around claims about my mental instability backed by what she said were official medical documents. Suddenly, she wasn't just fighting for her share, she was trying to erase mine completely. The fact that she stooped so low to fake mental health records sent a shockwave through my world. At first, I thought I was imagining things. How could my own sister fabricate something so personal, so damaging? But the more I dug, the more I realized this wasn't just about money. It was a twisted game of control and manipulation. I tried talking to her, hoping to find some reason behind her actions, but she only smiled and denied everything, acting like the innocent victim again. The betrayal cut deeper than any argument we'd ever had. And then, the paranoia kicked in. Little things started feeling off. Emails deleted, phone calls unanswered, whispered conversations when she thought I wasn't listening. I began to question everything I knew about Rachel and our relationship. Was she really the sister I grew up with? Or was she someone else entirely, hiding behind a mask of lies? One night I stayed up late, scrolling through old messages and documents, trying to find any proof to expose her. That's when I noticed something strange, a set of digital files that looked doctored, with inconsistencies no expert would miss. It was the smoking gun I needed, but I had to be careful. If Rachel caught wind of my suspicions, who knows what she'd do next? And just as I was about to reach out to a lawyer, I found the last piece of the puzzle hidden in plain sight. Something so shocking it stopped me cold. But I didn't react right away. I needed to plan my next move carefully. The stakes were higher than ever, and this wasn't just about family anymore. It was about survival. I never expected that exposing my sister's lies on TikTok would turn into a public spectacle, with strangers around the world watching me unravel a story darker than any soap opera. But I knew I couldn't stay silent. The truth had to come out, no matter the cost. So, this is where my nightmare started, and trust me, you haven't heard the half of it yet. You won't believe how paralyzed I felt after uncovering those doctored files. I had the evidence in my hands, but confronting Rachel? That felt like stepping into a minefield. So instead, I did the only thing I could. I pretended everything was normal. I smiled, I laughed, I talked to her like nothing was wrong. But inside, my mind was racing, connecting every strange behavior from the past few months into a terrifying pattern. At first, I tried to convince myself I was overreacting. Maybe it was just stress after losing our parents. But the more I watched her, the clearer it became. Rachel was hiding something, and the cracks were getting harder to ignore. She'd brush off questions with vague answers, change the subject when I brought up the will, and sometimes I'd catch her staring at me like I was a threat. It was like she knew I was onto her, but was daring me to prove it. Little things started standing out. The way she'd suddenly forget important details, or how she rearranged furniture in the living room when she thought I wasn't looking. One time, I found my personal diary shoved behind some books, pages creased like someone had been reading it in secret. It wasn't just about the inheritance anymore. It was about trust, and I realized I'd lost it somewhere along the way. There were moments when I questioned myself the most. Was I imagining all this? Had I become the paranoid sister, the one seeing shadows where there were none? But every red flag piled up until I couldn't deny the truth anymore. I hated that I had to think this way about my own family. The guilt was suffocating. I remembered how I used to defend Rachel to my friends, how I thought she was misunderstood. Now, those memories felt like lies I told myself to protect a broken relationship. And then came the worst part. The quiet moments when Rachel's guard dropped, and I caught glimpses of the person she really was, calculating, cold, and willing to destroy our bond for her own gain. I overheard a phone call she thought was private, her voice dripping with anger as she talked about getting what's hers and making sure I disappear. The chill that ran down my spine was nothing compared to the sinking feeling in my chest. I kept everything to myself, though. I wasn't ready to explode and make the drama public. At least, not yet. Instead, I began piecing together old memories that now made sense. Times Rachel borrowed money without paying back, stories she told that didn't add up, and the suspicious way she suddenly needed psychiatric help right when the will came into play. And then, just when I thought I had gathered enough to confront her, I stumbled on something I never expected, a hidden message in one of the mental health reports that didn't belong to me. It was a subtle but unmistakable clue that the documents were fabricated, not just altered. The implications hit me like a punch to the gut. She had gone so far as to hire someone, forge records, and try to erase me from the family legacy. That night, I sat alone staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of betrayal crushing me. I knew I couldn't keep this secret any longer. Something had to give. I wasn't sure how I'd do it, but I had to expose Rachel before she completely rewrote our history. The question was, how far would she go to keep me silent? I couldn't sit still any longer. The weight of all the lies and betrayal was suffocating, and waiting passively wasn't an option. I had to take action, even if it meant stepping into dangerous territory. So I started digging deeper, secretly checking her phone when she wasn't around, asking mutual friends subtle questions, and piecing together a timeline of her suspicious behavior. The tension inside me was like a volcano ready to erupt. Every time Rachel walked into the room, my heart pounded, not out of love or affection, but fear and anger. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from, but I kept telling myself I needed the truth, no matter how ugly it was. One evening, I managed to access her phone while she was in the shower. My hands trembled as I scrolled through messages, emails, and deleted conversations. Then I saw it, text between Rachel and someone unknown, talking about the plan and making sure no one finds out. They were coordinating something big, something I couldn't yet understand, but it was definitely not good. I screenshot everything I could, my mind racing with questions. Who was she working with? How deep did this scheme go? And most chillingly, how far was she willing to go to destroy me? The more I uncovered, the more I realized Rachel's betrayal wasn't just about the will, it was about power, control, and rewriting our family's story in her favor. I found deleted photos, financial records showing money being siphoned off, and even fake psychiatric appointments she scheduled to build her case against me. The whole thing was meticulously planned, like a twisted chess game, where I was the unsuspecting pawn. But Rachel wasn't just careful, she was cunning. The moment she noticed me pulling away, her behavior shifted. She started gaslighting me, denying things she'd said just minutes before, and throwing subtle accusations about my own mental health. She painted me as the unstable one, trying to flip the script and make me doubt myself. I was stuck in a mental battlefield. On one side, the hard evidence I was gathering. On the other, Rachel's manipulative charm that made people question who was really telling the truth. It was exhausting and heartbreaking. I felt like I was losing not only a sister, but the person I thought I knew. Then came the night I heard footsteps in the house when I was alone. I froze. The sound wasn't familiar, and when I peeked out, no one was there. My mind screamed danger, but I had no proof, just the creeping fear that Rachel might be watching me, ready to strike. That moment was a breaking point. I couldn't do this alone anymore. I needed allies, someone outside our family who could see the truth without bias. But reaching out meant exposing everything, risking humiliation, and making our private war public. Still, I knew what I had to do. I was ready to pull back the curtain and reveal the real Rachel to the world. The question was, would anyone believe me? Or would I be the villain in her story, just like she tried to make me? After that eerie night, my world tilted even more. The footsteps weren't just noise, they were a warning. I couldn't ignore it. My heart raced every time I heard a creak or a whisper. It felt like I was living inside a thriller movie, except this was my life, and the villain was my own sister. Panic tried to claw its way up my throat, but I forced myself to breathe. I had to stay calm, rational, because losing control meant losing everything. The next days were a whirlwind. I started gathering everything: texts, emails, fake appointments, bank transfers, any piece of proof that showed Rachel's true colors. I hid files in multiple places, made backups, and even recorded some of our conversations. I wasn't just preparing for a fight. I was preparing for war. And then I found it, the undeniable proof. An email thread between Rachel and a shady doctor who admitted fabricating mental health reports. The messages were cold, transactional, and completely damning. My sister wasn't just bending the truth, she was orchestrating an entire lie to take everything from me. The shock hit me hard. This was beyond sibling rivalry. This was betrayal on a level I never imagined. I kept asking myself, why? Why would she go this far? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized Rachel wasn't just greedy. She was desperate for control, craving power over me and the legacy of our family. Confronting her was inevitable. When I finally did, it was like walking into a storm. She denied everything with a chilling smile, twisting my words and making herself out to be the victim once again. I saw the anger flare in her eyes, but she masked it with venomous calm. Our confrontation wasn't just about the will anymore. It was about exposing who she truly was. The aftermath was brutal. Family members took sides, relationships fractured, and whispers turned into shouts behind closed doors. Some couldn't believe the Rachel they knew could do something so cruel. Others looked at me like I was tearing the family apart. Inside, I was a whirlwind of emotions: rage, sadness, confusion, and a deep ache of loss. I hated that this had to happen. I hated that my sister could be capable of such manipulation. But I couldn't let her rewrite my story or erase my existence. That's when I made a decision that shocked even me. I took my story public. I posted the truth on TikTok, laying bare Rachel's lies and manipulation. It was terrifying, exposing my family's darkest secrets to the world, but it was also liberating. Suddenly, strangers reached out, sharing their own stories of betrayal and support. I wasn't alone, but going public had consequences. Rachel lashed out with threats, false accusations, and attempts to discredit me. The drama escalated beyond anything I'd imagined. It became a battle not just for inheritance, but for my reputation and sanity. Yet through all the chaos, I found a strange strength. I realized that sometimes the only way to reclaim your power is to shine a light on the darkness. And no matter how deep the betrayal, truth has a way of fighting back. But this was far from over. The real fight, the one for justice and healing, was just beginning. The aftermath of going public hit me harder than I expected. Suddenly, my quiet life was shattered. People I thought were close, family, old friends, started to distance themselves, unsure who to believe or afraid to get involved in the mess. I was left feeling isolated, like a soldier standing alone on a battlefield where every side seemed against me. The weight of that loneliness pressed down, heavier than the betrayal itself. Every day brought new challenges. Rachel's camp pushed back hard, spreading rumors and lies to paint me as unstable, even dangerous. The very thing she fabricated to discredit me became the weapon she wielded. Social media comments turned hostile, some even threatening. It was overwhelming, and there were moments when I questioned if it was worth it at all. But deep down, I knew I couldn't back down. The truth had to be told, no matter the cost. I began to sift through my memories, replaying conversations and moments that once seemed trivial, but now screamed for attention. The times Rachel borrowed money and never returned it. The nights she vanished without explanation. The strange phone calls I overheard but didn't understand until now. One memory hit me harder than the rest. Our mother's last words to me, spoken softly during her final days. She warned me to be careful who I trusted, hinting at secrets buried beneath our family's polished surface. At the time, I thought she was just confused from illness. Now, those words felt like a prophecy. Piecing everything together, I realized this was never just about a will or money. It was about a deeper sickness, envy, bitterness, and a desperate need for control. Rachel's actions weren't random. They were calculated, born from years of hidden resentment and unresolved pain. This clarity didn't bring peace. Instead, it fueled my resolve. I wasn't just fighting for my inheritance anymore. I was fighting for my identity, for my right to exist without being erased by lies. But the battle changed me. The woman I was before, naive, trusting, hopeful, started to fade. In her place rose someone tougher, more guarded. I learned to protect myself emotionally, to question motives, and to stand firm even when the world turned against me. Yet, despite everything, part of me mourned what we'd lost. The sister I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. And the family I loved was fractured in ways I wasn't sure could ever heal. Still, I pressed on, knowing the road ahead was uncertain. There was no turning back. I had to face whatever came next, whether it was reconciliation, further conflict, or something I hadn't yet imagined. Because in the end, survival wasn't just about winning a battle. It was about reclaiming my story on my own terms. Leaving my old life behind wasn't easy. I packed up my things and moved across the country to a place where no one knew the tangled mess I'd been living through. The silence of a new city was both a blessing and a curse. It gave me space to breathe, to start over, but also forced me to face the emptiness I'd been running from. For the first time in years, I wasn't Anna, the sister caught in a family scandal. I was just Anna, and that was terrifying. The weight of the past didn't disappear. Nights were the hardest, when the quiet settled in and my mind replayed every betrayal, every lie. I wondered if I'd made the right choice by stepping away. Was this freedom or just a retreat? The scars Rachel left weren't just emotional. They felt like shadows that followed me, whispering doubts and fears. Then, out of nowhere, came a message that shattered my fragile calm. An email with the subject line, "I know where you are." My heart stopped. For a moment, I froze, caught between fear and anger. Who could have sent it? Was Rachel still watching, still trying to control me from afar? Or was this someone else, dragging me back into the chaos I desperately wanted to leave behind? That moment was a stark reminder. No matter how far I ran, the past wasn't done with me yet. The battle wasn't over. But this time, I was different. I wasn't the scared sister hiding in the shadows. I was someone who had faced the darkness and survived. Still, I had to make a choice. Keep running from the ghosts, or stand and fight one last time. The line between victim and warrior blurred, and I realized that to truly heal, I had to confront what haunted me. Not just Rachel, but everything she represented. I didn't know what the future held, But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to disappear quietly. This was my story, and I would write its ending on my own terms. Facing her wasn't easy. The moment I saw Rachel again, sitting there like nothing had changed, was surreal. It was like time had frozen, but everything inside me was breaking apart. She wore that same cold smile, the one that said she was untouchable, above it all. But I wasn't the same person anymore. I'd been through hell and back, and I was no longer afraid. Our conversation was tense, layered with years of hurt and unspoken truths. She tried to gaslight me, twist my words, make me doubt my own memories. "You're making this all up," she said smoothly, as if rehearsed. But I saw through it. I looked her in the eyes and said what I'd kept inside for so long. "I know what you did, Rachel. I'm done pretending." Her reaction was a mix of anger and disbelief, but beneath it all, I saw something I hadn't expected: fear. For a brief moment, the mask slipped, revealing the woman who'd been drowning in her own lies. It was a small victory, but it was enough to remind me that no matter how powerful she seemed, she wasn't invincible. The truth came out, but not in the way I expected. Rachel didn't apologize or admit defeat. Instead, she blamed me, said I pushed her away, that I was the cause of everything falling apart. It was a twisted mirror reflecting all my worst fears, but I refused to take the bait. I knew her version of the story was just another lie. That moment was the emotional climax of everything I'd been through. I had a choice: fall apart or walk away. I chose the latter. I looked at her one last time and said, "This is where we end." Then I walked out, feeling a strange mix of relief and sorrow. I wasn't the same sister anymore, and neither was she. The bond we once had was shattered beyond repair, but for the first time, I felt free. Free to rebuild myself without the weight of her deception. The path ahead was uncertain, but I knew this confrontation was a turning point. No matter what happened next, I had reclaimed my voice and my power. After the confrontation, silence settled over my life like a heavy fog. The noise, the fights, the accusations, the drama had finally stopped. But in that silence, I was left alone with the echoes of everything that had happened. It wasn't peaceful, it was hollow. I didn't cry. I just sat in the quiet room, the ticking clock sounding impossibly loud, each second a reminder of what was lost. I found myself revisiting old memories, laughing with Rachel as kids, the dreams we once shared, the warmth that felt so real back then. Now, those moments were ghosts, haunting me with what could have been. I looked at pictures I'd hidden away, read old messages that once brought comfort, but now only stung. It was a circle of emotions: grief, anger, nostalgia, that I couldn't escape. But slowly, something shifted. I realized that while the past was painful, it didn't have to define my future. I started looking for meaning beyond the betrayal. Helping others who had been betrayed. Speaking out about my experience. Finding small ways to heal. It wasn't about forgiveness, not yet, but about survival and growth. There was a strange beauty in the brokenness. I learned that pain doesn't disappear, it transforms. Scars become reminders not of weakness, but of strength and endurance. And in that space, I began to find a new purpose, a way to take control of my story and reshape it. One day, as I looked out at the sky, I noticed how blue it was, almost impossibly so. It felt like the universe was signaling a new beginning, a quiet farewell to the chapter I'd closed. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the start of something new. If I could speak to the younger me, the one who trusted blindly and loved fiercely, I'd tell her this: every scar, every tear, every betrayal shaped who I am today. I wouldn't change a thing, because without that pain, I wouldn't have found my strength. This journey, though brutal and heartbreaking, made me more real, more alive. I don't have all the answers, and I don't know what the future holds. But I've learned to live with the questions, the doubts, the shadows of the past. Sometimes, I still dream of the sister I lost, the one who was supposed to be my ally, my family. And sometimes, I wonder if she's out there somewhere, battling her own demons. I walk forward now without hatred, without the need for revenge. There's a strange peace in acceptance, even when things don't wrap up neatly. Life isn't about perfect endings. It's about finding meaning in the chaos and choosing who we become along the way. Maybe this story is mine, but maybe it's yours too. Because everyone has secrets, betrayals, and moments when the people closest to us break our trust. What matters is how we rise after the fall. So if you're listening and you feel lost or broken, remember this. Darkness never lasts forever. There's always a dawn, even if you can't see it yet. I left that place behind, but sometimes, in dreams, I still go back. Not to relive the pain, but to find the parts of myself I thought I'd lost. Not all wounds need healing. Some scars are meant to stay, to remind us that we truly lived. That's my story. Maybe it's yours too. And if you're struggling, hold on. The night is darkest just before the dawn.